Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into Morning Jocks, the final edition of the week here. Conrad Van Order and Damian Mitchell with you as it's game day in a variety of ways for a variety of different teams and in a variety of different sports, which is a fantastic thing to be able to say here on a Friday. And I think there's a very particular group of fans, and I think a lot of them, probably reside here in the state that have it's going to be a busy day for you because there is a group out there that you would consider yourself to be a part of, and that would be an Alabama fan, a Braves fan, and a Stallions fan, all in one. And if that is you, then today is maybe one of the best days of your life, or at least this year, because you've got Alabama in the Sweet 16 tonight. You've got the Braves kicking off their 2026 season there at Truist, and you've got the Stallions starting their season up in Louisville. So it is whether you fit into all of those boats or just one of those boats, you got something to look forward to. But I know for a lot of you out there, you're probably wondering, how am I going to watch all of these things at the exact same time? And I guess that's a great problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good situation to be in because one, you have to determine what your level of fandom is for each one of these. So like if you're watching one and neglecting the other, you kind of feel a little guilty. But I mean, with the way technology is now, man, you can have a game on the TV. If you have the ability to split screen on YouTube TV, you got that. You can have something on your phone. You can have, like another laptop set up. So there's a way to do all three of them.
Yeah, you just got to get creative sometimes.
Yeah, you just got to lock in. Easier said than done, though.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people find a way to get that done. But it's, again, that's a good problem to have. And whether whether you're just interested in one or two of those things or all three of them, it's going to be a great day. No doubt about it, and a lot of great sports coming up over the weekend that we will get into. But it is a Final Score Friday. It's not, a football season Final Score Friday, but it is a basketball season Final Score Friday. And so we want to hear from you on the JOX text line, 205-834-9450. What is your score prediction for Alabama and Michigan as that game will get underway around 6:35 this evening? It will be the first game of the night from the Midwest region. It'll be the second game of the night. St. John's and Duke will be the first matchup at 6:10, but it'll be the first one from there in Chicago. And then after that game wraps up, you will have Tennessee and Iowa State a little after 9 o'clock. And then Michigan State and UConn will be the second game there in Washington, D.C., following St. John's and Duke. So a great slate of basketball coming up tonight, and we would love to get your input, what your thoughts are. You've had about a week to marinate on it now, and we've talked about it a lot, and we're going to keep talking about it today, but would love to hear your early score predictions for the game and just kind of where everybody's at mentally, confidence level going into this Sweet 16 matchup for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But before we get too deep into what's coming up tonight and into the weekend, we have to start by looking back at what happened yesterday, because we did have 4 games in the Sweet 16 yesterday, and 2 of them were fantastic, and 2 of them were not fantastic. That's the simplest way that I could describe it there, I guess you could say. So we had 2 SEC teams in action yesterday. We'll have 2 more today. Alabama and Tennessee today. Texas and Arkansas were last night, and so we'll just go in order. We'll start with the order that the games went in last night, and in my opinion, the best game of the night was the one that started the earliest, and that was Texas and Purdue. And again, if you had asked me going into the Sweet 16 which game I thought was going to be the most competitive, or at least just of yesterday's slate, this would have been the game that I was least likely to select. Because again, Texas, they're the only double-digit seed that was left in the tournament. Not saying that they, fluked themselves into the Sweet 16, but it was a bit of a surprise. There's no doubt about it. And you just kind of wondered at a certain point, like, all right, Gonzaga's good, BYU's good. Like they got that DeBonsa guy. Like they're pretty good, I guess. And yeah, I mean, they had to play the extra game in the play-in. So maybe they're a little tired. Maybe it'll come back to get them at some point. And, Purdue, it's Purdue, right? There's no way Texas is going to beat Purdue. And they didn't, but they almost did. And they got
put up a mean fight.
They got as close as you could to beating Purdue without actually pulling off the upset. So again, I mean, what a fantastic basketball game. Purdue gets the win 79-77. They're able to pull off the victory there in the final seconds as Braden Smith hits a layup there with about .7 left on the clock to make it 79-77 and ultimately force a full court shot by Texas. Doesn't come close, and the Boilermakers find themselves advancing back to the Elite Eight. But this was essentially 40 minutes of one team scores and the other team scores, and then the first team would score again, and it like back and forth basketball for the entire 40 minutes. Like this was a 40-minute basketball game, and it was really impressive early on. You know, Texas had they went on a little bit of a run early, and you know it wasn't a game where you know it was like, oh, Purdue kind of got tired and Texas made this big comeback. Like they were in it essentially from the beginning, and they managed to hang on for dear life. And a big part of that was because of Tremont Mark, and dude, he was awesome last night. And he, you know, you hate it because he, you know, kind of messed his ankle up at one point, and he kept playing through it. But you know, it's one of those things. I'm sure if you're a Texas fan, it's like, man, if he didn't roll that ankle, like
What could have been?
maybe he gives us another bucket or two, and we find ourselves winning. You know, maybe his defense doesn't slip a little bit, and that you know is kind of what wins it for Texas. But credit where credit's due. He was sensational. He had 29 points last night for the Longhorns on 11 of 15 shooting. He was 5 of 7 from 3-point range. I mean, he was the Texas offense last night, and he laid every bit of it out there on the floor. But unfortunately for them, Purdue just they're not a team that's going to be phased in those kinds of a situations where they find themselves in a dogfight with an 11 seed. They're, you know, this has been there, done that for the Boilermakers and Matt Painter. So you got to give credit to them. But I mean, just consistency all around there from the Boilermakers. All 5 starters scored in double figures. They only got 4 points off the bench, but I mean, you get 16 from Braden Smith to go along with 5 assists and 2 rebounds. There's your star player. You had Fletcher Lawyer. He had 18 points, shot 4 of 8 from 3-point range. That'll certainly help you out. He was the only person that made a 3-pointer for Purdue. They went 4 for 20, and they still found a way to win this game. He is the only Purdue Boilermaker that made a 3-point shot over the course of the entire game. You have Trey Kaufman-Wren. He led the way with 20 points there for Purdue to go along with 8 rebounds, so that's certainly nothing to sneeze at there. But again, for Purdue, you shoot the ball really poorly from 3, but you find a way. Otherwise, offensively, you shoot the ball pretty well from the free throw line. Only 4 turnovers for Purdue. They only fouled 14 times. Like they just, again, they didn't get themselves in bad situations. And you find yourself out rebounding Texas. It was only 32-31, so not anything crazy there. But again, you did the little things right. You didn't shoot yourself in the foot outside of, you know, you're not shooting the ball well from 3. You can make up for that when you're not really making mistakes elsewhere. And so really, really impressive there. And if you're Texas, I mean, you shot the ball well. I think the one area where you would really be frustrated and you know, kind of look back and go, man, that was the area where we could have won the basketball game is the free throw line.
Yep.
Because you shot 8 of 15, which is 53% from the free throw line in an elimination game.
Yep.
So that's
You left a lot of change out there.
it's a tough pill to swallow if you're the Longhorns, no doubt about it. So their season comes to an end, but I mean, still, I think all things considered, first year for Sean Miller was a success. You made it to the Sweet 16. You darn near made it to the Elite Eight. I mean, and you know, again, one play, one ball bounces the other way in this game, and you're advancing. So it's a disappointing way for the season to end, just by the nature of you knew that you were right there with them. But Purdue, they will move on to the Elite Eight, and Texas will wrap it up. So that's one SEC team off the board. So that's you know, that's unfortunate. But you did have on the other side of things about 20 minutes after this game tipped off, you had Nebraska and Iowa and Cornmageddon, as our very own Molly Robinson had told us it was called. And this was very similar to Texas and Purdue. Now, it's, you know, I said Texas-Purdue was a 40-minute game. This was more like a 38-minute game.
Yeah. There's a clear separator at the end.
Where it was neck and neck, and it's, again, I hate it for the Molly Robinsons of the world because it was probably a little bit of a tough pill to swallow that for 38 minutes of this basketball game, it was incredibly competitive, but you never trailed. Iowa never had the lead in the first 38 minutes of this basketball game, so even though it was right there the whole time, and you knew you were one possession or two possessions away from maybe the game flipping. You had found a way to stay out in front. Like you had found a way to be the slightly better team for the majority of the night. Unfortunately, the last 2 minutes happened, and that's why Iowa walked out of there with a 6-point victory instead of a 1 or a 2-point victory. And you had some really ugly 3-point shots being taken out of desperation at times where you probably didn't need to force it until the very end. I mean, you come out of a timeout at one point, and you only have 4 guys on the court, and I was able to throw a full court pass for an easy 2 points. Like
That is
it's indefensible.
it's catastrophic. Like, think of the moment. Like, there is nothing. Like, there is just the spatial awareness, the basketball awareness to know that you only have 4 people out there in the Sweet 16. Like, you can make that mistake. Not really and truly, you should never make that mistake. But if it's the first game of the season and you're playing, no offense to, Southeastern Louisiana of the world, like, I can understand that. But, brother, we are in the Sweet 16. Before we break the huddle, like somebody, because again, with all these eyeballs that are out there, with all these coaches, you should be able to look and say, like, wait a minute, we're missing somebody. Like, we're missing somebody. Kind of like you remember LeBron James in the bubble was like, hey, it's our ball, ain't it? Like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, there's got to be somebody that is at high alert, because at that point, if you only got 4, you just slide somebody out there. Like, it doesn't even matter if you check in. You just need to have 5 people on the floor. But that was a massive, when I say massive mistake, that like it's you can't like you said you can't defend that.
No, you certainly cannot. And again, I know it's easy to go down you've never been down there before, and I think that's what I texted you before. It's like, well, you never been there before, so this is the kind of thing that happens to those teams at times. And say what you want about Iowa. I know it's a different team and things, but that's we're more used to them in the NCAA tournament and having some success. And obviously, this is the first time Nebraska's ever even won a game. But to get this far and, to be, again, over the course of the entire season, you proved to be a better team than Iowa was, a more consistent team than Iowa was. You split in the regular season, and, to get this far and to be so close in the final minutes and then just completely collapse. And of all teams, Iowa is the team that it happens against. Like, I think Molly would tell you that that's the most Nebraska thing ever, and it is, unfortunately, for that fan base. But I mean, you got to give credit again to Iowa, who, just like in the Florida game, when the pressure was on and it was the final minutes of the game, and you just needed a couple buckets. You got 2 big threes from Iowa down the stretch. Nebraska, you just didn't get the shots that you needed to, and you look at the course of the game, and Nebraska dominated the glass in this game. They had more assists than Iowa did, but you also had twice as many turnovers. You had half the number of steals that Iowa did. You had 5 blocks compared to 1 block for Iowa. Like, again, you can see where there's some discrepancies where you look at it and you go, okay, well, that's somewhere where Nebraska kind of dominated this game in some ways defensively, but then when you're making sloppy mistakes, you're turning the ball over, things like that. It doesn't work out. They both made 13 threes. Like, they both were able to fill it up a little bit from outside. Too. Yeah, they did. But Iowa took 8 less threes than Nebraska, and they made the same amount. Like, and Iowa shot 52% for the game as a team, and Nebraska shot 41. Like, those are the areas where, again, it just, when it came down to crunch time, Iowa was just a little bit better, had a little bit better shot selection, and that's why they find themselves moving on to the Elite Eight. So, again, 2 fantastic basketball games to start off. I know it's heartbreak for Texas and Nebraska fans, but that's what the NCAA tournament is. But these games are like, this is what you want.
Yes, sir.
When you get to this time in the tournament. Unfortunately, we also had a night slate of games.
Oh boy.
That was more compelling on paper and much less compelling to the actual eyeballs of the viewers that stayed up like I did and like Damian did to make it through 40 minutes of, I guess 80 minutes combined of just
agony.
Not particularly competitive basketball in a lot of ways, and ugly basketball in one case. So we'll continue to recap the day 1 of the Sweet 16. Continue to look forward to tonight. 205-834-9450 if you want to text in your final score prediction for Bama, Michigan. Some of you already doing so as we roll along. It's a Friday here on Morning JOX. 6:20 here on your Friday morning. Conrad and Damien with you on Morning JOX. Appreciate you tuning in each and every morning to the show. And many of you chiming in already with your score predictions here on this Final Score Friday for what's going to come up between Alabama and Michigan at 6:35-ish tonight there on TBS or True TV, I guess, whichever one of those you prefer. But we are taking a little bit of time to look back at last night's slate of Sweet 16 action before we get into today's. And again, we got to start with the fun games, and now we will briefly talk about the not as fun games. So you had another SEC team in action as Arkansas. They took on the number 1 seed Arizona. And this was a game that we had talked about. We were both excited for. Me and Damien were, in terms of, offensively speaking, there's going to be a lot of points, and there were a lot of points, to be fair. Just a lot more on one side than the other, unfortunately for the SEC. But, going into this one, it was, all right, with Darius Acuff, like, you have probably the best player in the tournament, arguably, and then Arizona is maybe all around the best team or most consistent team that we've seen in college basketball this season. So how is that going to play out? Well, it turns out the team that's all around better won by a lot. And if you listen to the pregame show, it wasn't a surprise to Charles Barkley, that's to say the least, because he basically said beforehand, he's like, he was very blunt about it. Like, yeah, it's been a great run for Arkansas, but this is it. Like, it's not going to be a fun night to be an Arkansas fan, and it wasn't.
It was not.
Arizona scored 109 points. 109. Arkansas scored 88. Like, the 88 points in a Sweet 16, yeah, that's pretty good. Like, you're going to win a lot of games if you do that.
What does Wentz Sanderson say? 88, and they're showing enough out the gate, dog.
Yeah. And you lost by 21. You lost by 21. And so really, I mean, this game was never close.
No.
It was kind of interesting at times early on where it was, kind of stay around like an 11 or 12 point lead for Arizona, and you're like, oh, okay, well, Arkansas goes on a run here, makes things interesting, and they never did, unfortunately, for Coach Cal and the Razorbacks. So their season comes to an end. So now we're down to 2 SEC teams. So it's down to Alabama and Tennessee for the conference's hopes of staying alive in the NCAA tournament. But, man, I mean, you just look at what – and I put down some notes at halftime for what Arizona's shooting percentages were, because I'm like, well, it's not going to be this good the rest of the game. It really doesn't matter what they were at halftime, because they were so good the entire game. The difference isn't really noticeable because of how dominant they were. They shot 64% from the field. 64%. They shot 39 free throws.
Yep.
They made 30 of them. 39 free throws. They shot 63% from deep. Granted, they only shot 8 threes, but they didn't need them.
Didn't need them.
They shot 64%.
No, there's nothing you could do.
No, I mean, again, like, that's part of it for Arkansas. Is it's like, okay, defensively, obviously not a great night for them, but at the same time, like, Arizona wasn't losing that basketball game to anybody, and I mean, that's why, in a lot of people's eyes, they've been the best team in basketball. In terms of, if you look at the start of the season to now, overall picture, consistency, that's been Arizona. And I mean, it was insane. But Arkansas, they didn't help themselves. They shot the ball very poorly from three-point range. They were 2 of 12 at halftime, 5 of 23 for the game. Tough. I mean, the fact you still scored 88 is impressive enough, but at the same time, if you're Arizona, like, at a certain point, you just stop caring. Like, you're like, okay, what? Like, they're not going to be able to keep up with us. Like, yeah, you can go have your baskets, but, like, you're not going to be able to do anything. Darius Acuff, he did have 28 points. And so, again, that's very nice. But you didn't have – I mean, you had the 5 3-pointers that were made. You had 5 different players make 1.
Right.
That was it. Like, Acuff was 1 of 5. Brazil was 1 of 7. Malik Thomas was 1 of 4. Wagner was 1 of 5. Like, it all around just wasn't great there for Arkansas. You get out-rebounded by Arizona. Arizona, unsurprisingly, had more assists. You did have less turnovers, so that's something you could be happy about. You had 9 turnovers and 9 steals compared to 12 turnovers and 3 steals for Arizona. So that's, maybe something to pat yourself on the back about. But, yeah, I mean, it was all Arizona from the jump, and it stayed that way for 40 minutes. So Arizona, they're going to move on.
And they're really good.
To the next round. They're going to take on Purdue.
Oh, my
That should be a really fun game. But again, if Arizona plays like that, it won't be because they're just going to steamroll
Oh,
right through the Boilermakers.
yeah. I had
That was
Arkansas in my
good.
Final Four. I actually had them pulling off the upset, and I had a gut feeling as we kept getting closer to tip off. It's man, am I just going? Am I just trying to find a way? Like, am I really just trying to convince myself that they're going to do it?
Yeah.
Maybe like 7, 8 minutes into the ball game, I said, "Yep, it's been a fun ride for Arkansas." Like Arizona to me, and again, Sweet 16. Like this is the game I would expect them, which they really have been handling their business. But this is like a opening round matchup. Like this is kind of that kind of shooting performance and the way that they dominated. You don't expect that in the Sweet 16. And
Yeah.
Arkansas literally just had no answer. It's even when we played tough defense, they're still finding a way to make a tough shot, or we're fouling them and they're going to the free throw line. Like nothing Arkansas could do defensively was phasing Arizona, and it didn't even matter who had the ball. It's like, okay, well, we're trying our best to, stop Burries from shooting the ball, and everybody else is finding themselves wide open or getting a backdoor cut to the basket. Like nothing they could do defensively was phasing Arizona, and Arizona was just like, there's a reason why we're here, so let us show you. And you see why they're advancing.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So, from the best offensive performance of the tournament so far to one of the worst, you have the Houston Cougars and the Illinois Fighting Illini as they were doing battle last night. And I'll admit it. I said on these airwaves yesterday that I thought this might be the best game of the night and one of the best games of the entire tournament, and it was not. It was painful to watch for a lot of it, especially if you're a Houston fan. So we talked a lot about Houston and how, man, they're always so solid defensively and just fundamentally sound. But the offense in years past, that's been the thing that's held them back at times. But it felt like this year they had kind of they had improved in that area in a lot of ways, and that was that made us not look very smart last night based on what they put out on the court because Houston. Oh, think about this: Houston scored essentially half as many points as Arizona did. They scored 55 points in 40 minutes of basketball. Arizona scored 109 in the same amount of time.
Same amount of time.
A little bit of difference there. Granted, Illinois, they're bigger. They're going to be better defensively than Arkansas is, but still, I mean, it wasn't a pretty night. It wasn't a pretty night really for either team offensively, but for Houston, they shoot 34% as a team. They only got to the free throw line twice. You made both of them, but you shot 2 free throws in a Sweet 16 game. That's going to be tough to overcome. Illinois, on the other hand, I mean, they were solid. They shoot 43% overall for the game. They go to the free throw line 21 times. They only made 12 of them, so they weren't great, but they got there, and they had their opportunities. They out-rebounded Houston 43-34. That's tough to overcome there if you're the Cougars, obviously. They did turn the ball over a little more than Houston did, but there were just so many, especially in the first half watching it, because I'm going to be honest with you. In the second half, I started watching it. I kind of focused more on Arkansas, Arizona, because I was like, it's at least fun to just watch Arizona go up and do whatever they want on the court.
Yeah.
Whereas this game was just more painful to watch. And Houston, they did fight back because, I mean, Illinois was blowing them out for a while.
Yes.
And then Houston, to their credit, they found a way to come back and make it respectable. And at one point, it's like a 9-point game with 5 minutes left. And you're like, okay, maybe something's going to happen here. It didn't, but credit to Kelvin Sampson and his group for at least fighting back in that situation. But the amount of shots they missed around the basket, especially in the first half, I mean, maybe they're not like the highest percentage shots because they are the tough ones around the basket, but either stop taking them or make them.
Yep.
And there were so many opportunities there for Houston in the first half. I think I texted you at one point, like you're just watching the game and the way that Illinois was playing. Houston should have been up by 8 points easily, midway through the first half, but they were missing all of these. Like they had shots, they weren't hitting them at all. And it's unfortunate that the team that I know a lot of people probably had them making a Final Four run, making it to a national championship, and a team that got so close to winning it all last year. If it wasn't for a late turnover against Florida, maybe they do. And this is the way that you go out. So it was ugly. Illinois wins 65-55. It wasn't a lot of fun to watch, but they're going to move on and they're going to take on Iowa. So a little Big Ten on Big Ten action there in the Elite Eight.
It's just what they keep on doing. So it's big.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Big Ten finally? Are they really at the top now in both football and basketball?
It's not looking great right now, Damien. It's not
Are
looking
we
great.
cooked? Is the SEC cooked?
We might be. We got baseball. We're really good at
You're
baseball.
really good at baseball.
Baseball and softball. I feel really strongly that those aren't going anywhere. But yeah, we got a little bit of a Big Ten problem right now.
But no, I mean like Illinois, and again, it wasn't like Illinois was playing flawless basketball last night either. But like you said, it felt like the shots that they were missing early on for Houston, that the pressure started to mount. Like man, these are going to bite you if you can't hit. A little 7-footer when you have. I mean, again, like you said, it wasn't like it was the prettiest shot, but the percentages will tell you that that's a better shot than a 3.
Yeah.
And then when they settled for the 3, they didn't necessarily make them. So it was a bad recipe. Like it felt like the Houston teams of old that have kind of fallen short, where defensively you did just about everything you possibly could do. You made it difficult for Illinois at times, but then offensively it's, man, we can't get anything going. And like you said, credit to Houston for not just, laying down and accepting their fate. No, they continued to fight the entire time. And it's just, I hate it for Kelvin Sampson because I do think he's a phenomenal coach. At some point, he's going to get over the hump. It just won't be this season. And it's extremely unfortunate. But, I mean, Houston, you're at home. Like, you're everything that could have gone wrong for Houston went wrong. And it just so happened to be in the Sweet 16. And it's a gut punch. But, like you said, Illinois, they're keeping this thing on rolling.
Yeah, no doubt about it there. So, a rough night there for Houston. They go home. Illinois, they move on. And again, as I said, they're going to take on Iowa now in the Elite Eight. So we've got 2 of those matchups set. The other 2 will be set tonight once we get through the next round of games. So we'll take a little time, talk some final thoughts and our predictions for Alabama versus Michigan. Plus, Nate Oates, he finally addressed it yesterday. His thoughts on the North Carolina job opening and if he's going to be staying at Alabama or what his future may hold. We'll let you hear from the Alabama basketball coach next here on JOX. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on a game day. And that means three things because you've got Alabama and Michigan. That's going to be the hot topic here today, I'm sure. At coming up at around 6:35 this evening, that's going to get you underway there. You've got the Birmingham Stallions as they kick off their season tonight against Louisville in the debut of new head coach AJ McCarron leading the Stallions. So I know a lot of people very excited about that one. That's going to be a 7 o'clock kickoff tonight. So yes, it will be on at the same time as the basketball game. But as we discussed a little bit earlier, that's why multi-view is such a wonderful thing. That's why we have cell phones and laptops and multiple TVs.
We'll figure it
in a
out.
lot of cases, yes. I think people will find a way to do it. And then at 6:15 tonight, you're going to have the Braves and the Royals as the Braves will open up their 2026 campaign there in Truist Park. So it's going to be a great weekend and a very busy night for a lot of you, as we know. But we going to take some time now and get to some of our final thoughts on the Alabama and Michigan matchup. But before we do that, Damian, man, I wish we could go through and just honestly play the entire press conference, because if you didn't get to hear any of what Nate Oates said yesterday, he had and we'll be with you on Mac and Cube today from 7 to 10 as well. So we'll get into some more of the audio there, but you could tell that Nate had a lot to say, and he was having fun with it yesterday. And I mean, from him diving into his days of being a high school coach and talking about how much money he made then compared to now, and why he's not worried about contracts and things. Like, again, I understand. I do subscribe to the Pat Smith school of thinking, which is all coaches are liars. It was pretty dang convincing yesterday listening to Nate Oates in terms of just his perspective on things. Appears to be
The money don't move, Nate.
quite good.
Yeah.
And he seems to be pretty happy with how things are going and things of that nature. So we'll get into more of that, but I did want to play this. This was him being directly asked after the first question of the press conference. It was Charlie Potter of On 3 Sports. He was asking Nate Oates about the North Carolina job and about his name coming up in those talks, to potentially replace Hubert Davis.
I mean, it's not the first time. And look, a lot of respect to the other programs that may open, and they've got great basketball tradition. And, as a young high school coach, maybe, shoot, I didn't think I'd ever be in this spot, to be honest with you, that long ago. So if you've gotten to know me, I'm not a guy that's trying to always jump around. Like, the grass is not always greener. I love Alabama. My girls love Alabama. They're here with me. I love working with the administration that I work with. I think Greg Burns, best AD in the country. I love working with him. It'd be great if I was able to work with them the rest of my career. They're doing everything they can to make sure that we've got a competitive program. And as long as we're able to compete to win championships here, SEC, national championships. We haven't done that here yet. I'd love to be the coach to bring us our first national championship. We got to a Final Four. So to me, there's absolutely no reason to leave here. And while it's flattering that a high school guy that caught a couple breaks would be mentioned with some of these jobs because they've got a lot of tradition, I'm not a guy that's looking to get out of here anytime soon. I love it here. My girls love it here. I love working with the people at Alabama. So, yeah. Names are going to get mentioned. I'm probably one of 10 or 12. It is what it is. That's the business. But I haven't talked to anybody, nor do I plan on talking to anybody.
So there you go. Make of that what you will. But I would just say this: whether you believe it or not, compared to what you've heard some of these other coaches like Dusty May and Tommy Lloyd and those guys who have also been asked about it, I personally think what Nate Oates said is a little more convincing than the path that those guys have taken, where, it just seems a little more obvious to me that some of those guys are leaving the door open to where, okay, if they do ultimately decide to leave or they do get offered the job at North Carolina or maybe a Kansas or whatever, that they won't have to go back and say, yeah, I did. I kind of lied to y'all, didn't I? It's like, well, I didn't specifically say I was coming back, but I also didn't say that I was not coming, so I think Nate Oates made it pretty clear there. And again, you never know. Coaches lie. It happens all the time. It happens way more often than not. Look at Will Wade.
Well, did he lie? He just asked if the job was open. And then he said,
Yeah,
you
when
know,
the North Carolina
when-
State AD comes out and says,
cares?
"Yeah, Will Wade told me he wanted to be here 48 hours ago, and now he's in an SUV getting cursed out by Wolfpack fans on the way out."
I completely forgot that Boo Kerrigan was the
Yeah.
AD there.
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, man, I ain't heard from you in a long time. I remember you was out here messing up the college football playoff, and
Golly.
then Will Wade going, stab you in the back on the way out. But no, it was bad. It's bad business altogether. But I'm with you. I agree with Nate Oates of, it's really, like you said, it's flattering to know, but also it's basically the cleaner version of what Houston Millett said about Alabama. It's like, man, I love this place. I love being here. And I'm under the impression of, if he says it out of his mouth, then I have no other choice but to take him at his word. Now, his actions could prove otherwise, but I do think that he sees the potential and everything that he's built up at Alabama. Why would you want to leave it for somebody else behind you to take over? I understand, like, North Carolina, it is a premier job, but Nate Oates, I like his mindset of, we're competing for SEC championships. We're going to get a national championship. I would love to be the coach that wins a national championship here. Greg Byrne has been rocking with him ever since he's been there. So I think that where he is right now, it would be extremely difficult to just leave it up, even though these other opportunities are there. I think he's kind of realizing, like, nah, I really enjoy my time here. Why not ride this wave until I can't anymore?
Yeah, and I mean, it's very similar to what you heard from Kalen DeBoer during the football season, or I guess at the end of football season. It was I haven't talked to anybody. I'm not planning on talking to anybody, and people can say what they want, but I mean, many people got shown how silly they were. I'll say that is a nice word. During football season for confirming that Kalen DeBoer was leaving and going to Penn State. And again, I know most coaches lie, but he didn't lie.
Nope.
And that doesn't mean that Nate Oates isn't lying, but I'll take his word over what some of the other coaches have said about that situation. So we'll have to wait and see, but I did want to play that. And if that makes you feel better as an Alabama fan, great. If you're like this LSU fan that texted in and is convinced that means he's leaving, then, I also understand where you're coming from there. But you're just happy that you got Will Wade back, who's,
yeah.
Anyways, but we'll see what they got bigger problems there with
tell
that
you
basketball program.
LSU, I'm telling you, that the money that you have spent on these coaches,
you better win a lot.
I'm talking about a ton. Like something's better.
Championships need to be coming back to Baton Rouge very quickly.
And I'm talking about fast. All that money that you spending on this, and then not to mention Will Wade's a 7-year deal.
Yeah,
like you're recommitting. Like you're recommitting. Like, hey man, sorry everything went south on your way out, but welcome on back. And then you're paying Lane Kiffin basically $100 million for a coach that ain't won nothing. I mean, like I asked yesterday, Kim Mulkey, Will Wade, Lane Kiffin. Who do you think wins a national title first?
I mean, Kim Mulkey's probably the smart answer, but I would go. I mean, I guess I'll take Lane. Will Wade's not winning They're not going to win. They're not, I'm not saying. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, again, I think he's a good coach, but
for sure.
He's not a national. Has he ever played in a Final Four for a national championship?
Nope.
No. Okay, so it doesn't mean he can't, but
he's getting paid like he is.
Yeah, because it's on the taxpayers according to their governor, because he has no idea how money works, and he can. I'm just glad we don't hear from him as much, because he was insufferable during the whole Lane Kiffin thing. He's just talking out his ass, like most people there in Baton Rouge. Let's be honest. But all right, let's get to our final thoughts on Alabama and Michigan here quickly before we get to your text to wrap up Morning Jocks. But the good news is we'll be back with you from 7 to 10, filling in for Mac and Cube for one more day. But this game, Damian, Michigan now only an 8.5-point favorite. It's gone down from 10.5 at the beginning of the week. So maybe that makes you feel a little bit better if you are cheering on the Tide tonight. But I mean, make no doubt about it. It's gonna be a brutal challenge. I would think it's gonna have to look in a lot of ways probably similar to Texas and Purdue last night, where Michigan maybe doesn't have a great night shooting the ball from deep. Alabama has one of their premier nights shooting the ball from deep. And you're just kind of able to outgain and outscore Michigan on the court. I certainly think that's possible to do. I think it's very reassuring, the defensive effort that you've seen from Alabama here in the last couple of games in the NCAA tournament. However, much like the Arkansas and Arizona matchup, it's hard for me not to think that Michigan is, again, they are the better team, and Alabama is going to have to show that they're just going to have to play their A-plus game. And Arkansas didn't last night, and you saw what happened. And if Alabama doesn't play an A-plus game tonight, it could be not great at the end of it all. But I do think that they seem very locked in. Hearing some of the players yesterday talking about Coach Oates and how locked in he's been this week, and just the intentionality of everything that they've been going through in practice. I think Alabama's going to be ready for the challenge. I do think Michigan's the better basketball team. I'm not going to call for the upset. I can't just outright predict that. I would love to be able to do that, but I mean, again, Michigan and Arizona, in my opinion, have been the two best teams all season long. I think Alabama's been really, really good at times this year, but I would take Michigan, and if I had to put a score on it, I would go something maybe like, you know, let's call it like 88-80 or something like that. I think Alabama can keep it within the number. I think it's going to be a competitive game, but I mean, right now, I cannot pick Alabama to win this basketball game as much as I might like to. I got to go with Michigan.
I pretty much repeat everything that you said. It's hard not to. It's hard for me to think that Michigan's going to go out there and lay an egg. Like, they are the better basketball team. There's a lot of things that have to go right for Alabama just to really keep it within a puncher's chance. Now, if they get hot from three, yeah, how likely is that? I don't know. It just seems as though you're going to need Alabama needs more help than Michigan does as far as securing a victory. I can't go with Alabama. I'm going Michigan somewhere like 80-75, 80-74, somewhere around there. Michigan's just a better basketball team. Simple as that. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. They can cut you up in a lot of different ways. And their defense is kind of the separating factor as well, where if Alabama does get open shots, they're going to have to hit them, because it's going to be difficult to just kind of set up and find an open shot just because the way Michigan plays defense. So I think Michigan wins. I think Alabama keeps it within the number, keeps it respectful, but I do think Michigan wins.
Yeah. So, again, it's hard to go against Michigan and just how dominant they've been all year, but Alabama, they certainly have a chance. It's just, I mean, it would be an upset. There's no way around it. That's just the reality of what it would be, and we'll see if they're up to the challenge coming up tonight at 6:35. But a lot of you chiming in, 205-834-9450, your score predictions, your thoughts on Nate Oates and his comments about the North Carolina job, all that and more next here on Morning Jocks. 6:53 here on your Friday. Final few moments of Morning Jocks. Conrad and Damian with you. We'll be back from 7 to 10, so we're not going anywhere, for 3 more hours of college basketball talk. We'll dive into the Stallion season opener, the Braves starting their season tonight as well, and much, much more. But now we go to the Jocks text line, 205-834-9450, and get some of your thoughts on the Alabama-Michigan game as well as Nate Oates' future as we continue on. We'll start off with this one. This one just says Michigan by 90. Go to hell, Alabama.
Okay.
That's an Auburn fan.
All right.
Eric from Sneed chimes in. He says Alabama 89, Michigan 81.
Okay.
Hey, he's being consistent. He texted in the other day and said Alabama's going to beat Michigan by 8. So he's sticking with that number. Let's see. Howie chimes in. Alabama 82, Michigan 80. Okay. That would certainly not
squeak on by.
That would certainly not hurt. Let's see. We have this text that rolls in. This one is from Jamie. It says Alabama 96, Michigan 85. That'd be a heck of a win. That would be a heck of a win to get it by 11. This one says Alabama 91, Michigan 88. I'm sensing a theme here. Okay, Thomas. He says Michigan 89, Alabama 80. Yax has his first triple-double.
Triple-double?
I will say it was definitely hard to hear yesterday Yaxel Lundborg talking about how he wanted to go to Alabama and be recruited by them and saying, well, they didn't recruit me. And then hearing Nate Oates go, no, we did. We were told that the money wasn't where it was like. And then when he found out about it, like you could tell he was like, oh, man, I might have gone to Alabama if I had known that they were interested in me. But I guess his agent never told him that they had reached out. So that was great. That was really fun to hear yesterday. This one says, first, I love Nate Oates, but did you guys see the press conference or just hear the audio? He rarely looked up to face the camera or the media, and I've seen Coach behind the mic, and it's typically heads up, eyes straight ahead. So that made me uncomfortable. I mean, teach their own, but might be overthinking a little bit here. This one says, Nate Oates has a lot to consider taking the job, administration, NIL, judge retainer fees, and facilities. We're back.